Hey, look what I made for us.
Wonderful. I was hoping for some tea tonight. My goodness, who could possibly be visiting at this hour? Stevie, I'll see who it is. Stevie, we have a guest who would like to see our museum.
I'm so glad you came to see our museum. I want to show you our clock tower first because it means so much to Stevie and me. We built it ourselves. Stevie did most of the design work. We put the 3-storied tower on top of our old hay barn and then put 5 huge bells on the top to ring out the time of day. The neighbors loved it at first until they thought the ringing was keeping their chickens up at night, so they complained to the town. Instead of paying a hefty tax, we stopped the clock. We said, from now on, we aren't giving Stratford the time of day. We bought the first old clock from an abandoned church in Massachusetts, and we got it in exchange for a Eureka carpet sweeper. What a deal that was.
David and Stephen Boothe were born on the family farm just after the Civil War. They led quiet lives until the Industrial Revolution challenged them to move beyond the life of farming. They traveled, built businesses, collected artifacts for their first museum, and began a building program that had no equal. Both their father, David Beach Boothe Sr., and their mother, Betsy Amelia Nichols, were descendants of the earliest settlers of Stratford.
We call this building the Redwood Building, but it began as the Technocratic Cathedral. We wanted to show off new technical items, but also use the inside for church services in bad weather. If you look closely, you will see that all the boards in the whole building are made of redwood, the first redwood that came east through the Panama Canal. The boards all lie flat, and it's held together with galvanized dowels and no nails. Even the windows are horizontally laid glass blocks. We used to kid others and call the building the Depression Building because it was built during the Depression when everyone was flat, broke, and in the red. Originally, we planned to have 5 stories to the building as our models show, but again, the town stopped us. They wanted to tax us $3,000 more for anything over 2 stories, so that wasn't going to happen.
The two brothers enjoyed delighting the public. The grounds show off unusual and historic items gathered from other states. A couple of large grist millstones used to grind grains at a local mill. Some cast iron anchors can be seen at the entrance to the museum. They came from Gloucester, Massachusetts. And several old carriages are kept in the barns to remind us of how we used to travel across land. A miniature lighthouse on the grounds was built by David and Stephen in 1918, and it was surrounded by water. Back then, the pond held a variety of fish, but the area is now covered with small stones. Another interesting feature on the estate was a small windmill across from the homestead. This building reflects their sense of humor and showmanship. The sail and tail of the windmill were free to spin with the wind. You may have noticed a small octagon-shaped building near Stephen's house. It was the same trolley house used by the family from 1899 to 1931, when the trolley line was replaced by Route 110. It required the purchase of Boothe property along the river. The Boothe family was paid $1 for all the land, but was also given free rides for their lifetime. They were given tokens but never used them, preferring to pay the nickel fee.
Surely one of the most popular places at our park to see is the blacksmith shop. Henry Ford built a blacksmith shop for his museum in Dearborn, Michigan. It only had 4 sides and 4 corners. So I built this shop with 44 sides and 44 corners, not counting the east, west, south, or north side, or the shady side. And of course, there's not a shady side to anything the Boothe Brothers do. Inside the shop, we collected the contents of 5 blacksmith shops from the town. If anyone ever finds one thing missing from this shop, I will gladly give them $5. So far, I haven't had to pay up. Even today, it's still a working blacksmith shop. I love to watch the faces of adults and children when they see how iron was shaped into tools and horseshoes. Next door, there are 3 crosses in honor of our mother, Betsy Nichols Boothe. We loved our mama. When she passed, we wanted to honor her faith and memory. We even went to Jerusalem and found a thorn tree like our honey locust tree. The crosses loom over the sunken garden, or as we called it, the basilica, which was designed and created to enable various religious groups to gather and worship together. We put in a pulpit and even an organ house for the choir and music. Stevie and I went all the way to Alabama and picked up special stones to make the garden walls strong. By the way, we got the stones delivered on a Sunday, so we didn't have to pay for union wages. What a time we had here for many years at Easter, when thousands of folks would come for the day. All the ministers in town would dress up like pilgrims with a musket in one hand and a Bible in the other. Then they would take turns preaching at the pulpit that is 10 feet above contradiction. Those were the days, but you know, people complained that it was too cold or too early or something else. But we're not fakers. We have it at sunrise, and yes, sometimes it was cold and dark when we started, so we stopped having the services after 1938. We had even provided free refreshments. Stevie was a great cook.
Many of the museum buildings today once served as barns for the Boothe family. The Coliseum, or the Pavilion, has a barn at its base with a second floor added to accommodate visitors. The Americana barn houses a display of farming tools as well as a history of the textile industry, which includes several large looms on which rugs were made. School children enjoy weaving these rugs while here on field trips. The attached carriage barn housed most of the family's carts, wagons, carriages, and the tack used for the animals. Although many people in town thought of the brothers as being eccentric and frugal, they were often the very opposite. During the Depression, when the town budget went dry, the 2 brothers showed up and made an anonymous gift to pay off the town debt. When people saw one of the brothers take an apple from a fruit store or a candy from a candy store, they assumed it was theft. But, in fact, they had made arrangements with the owners ahead of time by giving them $25 a month to allow them to steal some of their goods. This was a gross overpayment, so the merchants were more than delighted to cooperate. This supposedly frugal duo was the same one that spent so much energy and money going to any church to throw a fundraiser for the group. They devised hilarious games and interesting menus for each one, and they were very popular events.
There's plenty to see around here, as you can imagine, and Stevie and I try and add to the displays regularly. We're very proud of what we did to renovate the old homestead. We knocked out doors and walls and put in several puzzle floors, which we bought from the New York Belting and Packing Company. They let us design any pattern and sent us the puzzle parts, but of course we had to put the puzzle together. Stevie and I also put in a lot of special stained glass windows, which we bought from the Bridgeport Art Glass Company. Did you know that we also have 4 safes in the house? We kept all our money in the banks in Bridgeport, but some of the things we loved, like my Uncle Sam costume or our coin and stamp collection, we wanted to have nearby. There were a lot of businesses to look after. Father and I were agents for Adrian's Platt, which owned farm equipment. We bought, sold, and repaired items for them. We also had an insurance agency with our Uncle Luzon Nichols, and Stevie and I had over 100 rental apartments in Bridgeport. We had a lot more than that we left empty when the government told us what we had to charge. You can imagine what kind of reaction we had to that. Anyway, our house is now full of things we collected: baskets, furniture, and other artifacts of the past. Each year, hundreds of school children come to the park to learn about our past. They grind wheat, get fresh eggs from our chickens, and actually make pancakes. They even get to try out our weaving loom. It's a great time with some hands-on learning for all.
I lived here at the beginning of the building and collection process. My name is Ruth Norton Boothe. David and I were married on Christmas Eve in 1921. I was 25 and he was 52. I enjoyed spending some of their wealth and living lavishly, but it wasn't meant to be, and we were only together a few years. Stephen and I didn't always get along, even after we built a house for him right on our property. The 2 of them had been together for 50 years before I came along. It was a bitter and scandalous divorce that made headlines in all the papers. I'm sure you can look up all the details, but I've moved on. Both of them remained single the rest of their lives, and with no children, making them the last of their family line. Inside or out, Boothe Memorial Park and Museum is quite unique. David and Stephen were generally misunderstood by the public. They left behind a legacy of generosity that was not fully recognized until they died. Their joint wills bequeathed the property and buildings to the town of Stratford so that everyone might enjoy their estate as much as they had during their lifetime. There's a magnificent rose garden that's been used as a background for many weddings and prom photographs. There's the restored chapel, which is still used today for small ceremonies, and the summer cottage is used by the Historical Society for document preservation and storage. There's even an observatory over near the burial grounds with a powerful telescope, a playground for children down the hill, a radio station, and even a replica train station filled with model trains. We have an opening day ceremony every year that celebrates our nation's veterans. There's an emotional flag raising, and people come from miles around to show off their horseless carriages, the automobile. For many years, Putney players performed Shakespeare in the sunken garden during the summer. There's even been an exciting Civil War reenactment here at the park. This 32-acre park continues to evolve and grow along with the town of Stratford. The Merritt Parkway toll booths welcome visitors from the carriage parking lot, but of course there's no toll or fee for use of the park. The brothers would not have stood for that.
I see you very much enjoyed yourself this evening. Thank you for taking wonderful care of our home. Please enjoy the muffins. I picked the blueberries myself. Yours truly, Stephen Boothe.